Hi, guys. So, we are going to discuss what happens at a royal coronation service, especially as we have King Charles III about to have his coronation in just a little bit of time. People are wondering, well, what actually happens at the coronation service? What is involved? What are the steps? How much does it cost? So, we're going to run through that tonight with a little bit of royal news to start. We'll have a little bit of royal news and then we will go into this. Also, this may be a little bit of a history lesson because we're going to run through how this all came to be. Not going to discuss the royal regalia much tonight, but we'll get a lot covered. I am Deanna, guys, from Hot for History, where I get to share some royal news, some commentary on history and how we see history evolving in real time. Because right now, the reason why those of us who love history are covering the coronation is because what we're seeing is, some of us have never seen this in this lifetime. We're seeing the shift of a monarchy. And when that shifts, the what hits the fan. All kinds of crazy stuff is going on right now, especially what we know of with Prince Harry. There's a lot of questions, but we will be discussing what happens at the coronation. We will be answering your questions and sort of prepping us for when we do watch this or when we are watching the festivities, which will be from May 6th to May 8th. So again, I'm Deanna from Hot for History. Thank you for supporting me. Please subscribe, please like. Thank you for, supporting me with your super thanks, within the super chat and all of that. So first, let's talk a little bit about the recent royal news, and then we will get into the steps of the coronation. So our recent royal news is that there is a lot going on with this sort of not my king protest, which is honestly, I'm not surprised. It's supposed to happen. Honestly, during a shifting monarch, everything goes crazy. And it's insane. So of course, people are going to question this. There's a lot of anti-monarchists. And, I live in America, so I don't have to honestly live day to day knowing what it's like to have a royal family. I think obviously we're all fascinated by it, but we also fought for our freedom not to have that. So there's that. I like to be open to whatever. So before I kind of go into this, I'm going to just take a couple of questions. I'd really like to see Charles give Northern Ireland back to the Irish. Yes, I used to live in the Republic, and even though it's been 500 years since, it's still a sore subject. You know what? A lot of the history is still a sore subject. I mean, we're looking at diamonds that they're going to be using that still, in Queen Mary's crown, for example, the Kohinoor diamond from India. And they said, okay, we don't want to offend anybody, so we won't wear it in the crown, but they're not giving it back. Right. And I've heard a lot of people really complain about the whole Wales thing. Why is he the Prince of Wales? Did we vote for this? So as glamorous as and interesting as it was, there's really a shady past as well. So I get it. Oh, I'm sorry that you haven't received your invitation yet. Me neither. Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. We will go into this. I don't know if you guys knew this. I'm going to read a little bit. One of you guys said to me the other night that the reason why the coronation is on May 6th was not because of Archie's birthday, which, Harry and Meghan might be upset about. But there is a bank holiday that following Monday, and I believe they wanted to extend it. And there was something also that aligned with some kind of royal history. Greetings from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Yeah, where is everybody from? Canada. I'm in Orlando, Florida, where it's in the 50s today. I have another turtleneck on because I rarely get to wear that. I was going to go on at 11 this morning, but what happened was we had a little water break by the pool. So that was a problem. So that's why I'm late. Okay, this might shock you guys because it shocked me. How much? Okay, I want you guys to answer this question. Who is paying for the coronation and how much? I want to know if you know. Sorry, these are just cheap reading glasses that I got that also are good for computers, but they make me look like Elton John. Who's paying? Okay, Sacramento, California, New York City. I lived in New York 4 years. My husband's from New York City. My children were born in New York. I'm from the UK. I agree with you regarding Northern Ireland. Lots of people in the North still disagree. Columbus, Ohio. Okay, who is paying for the coronation and how much? How much do you think this coronation would be? Nova Scotia, Welcome, everybody. It's so great to see you, probably the public. You got that right. Okay, 15 million pounds. We have one guess. It is not out of the pocket of the king. Okay, it is a state event. The UK government will be paying for it, which essentially means it's being paid for from the taxpayer. Okay, I'm going to let you know how much it costs because I could not believe it. It's 100 million pounds. I don't know. I don't have my conversion, calculator here, but that's a lot of money. And it was during Queen Elizabeth's coronation. I believe it was like 1.5 million, which was about 46 million. In today's money, that's a lot of 100 million. Yes, 100 million pounds. 100 million pounds. That's so much. So anyhow, and we still don't know whether Harry and Meghan are going to come because of their kids, but there has been even more talk as of last night when I went on here live, where their demands or their requests are simply that, Lilibet and Prince Archie and themselves could go on the balcony and that they would be mentioned as far as his birthday is concerned, yada, yada, yada. And so that's what we know. So let's get into this a little bit. I want to dive into, this also is interesting. Apparently, George is going to have a role, and Will and Kate are concerned now because George is 9 years old. They don't think he's old enough to have too much of a responsibility. So they're nervous. So there's this back and forth, like how much of responsibility will, George have? So they're going back and forth about it, and they're kind of I don't know if they're upset. I shouldn't talk about their feelings. Obviously, they didn't go to Dollar Tree for the decor. No, they did not. There's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, Christina. It is, 100 mil. I keep thinking, why? Like, how is it that it's 100 million? I guess security. They said security is much higher than it ever was in the past. That could be why. Okay, let's talk about this. This was from the royal website. I'm going to go through the schedule. I'm going to use a graphic that's a little blurry, but then we're going to talk about the 6 steps of the coronation. What I'm not going to talk about, because I want to do this at an entirely different live or video, is the regalia, because it's so intense, which would include, the scepter, the orb, the crown, all of the gems, all of the crown jewels, even the specifics of the anointing oil, because there's all this kind of interesting stuff that I want to dive into. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I'm not going to go into detail with the regalia, but we're going to talk about the steps of the coronation. This is just so the schedule, meaning the schedule of the day, and then the steps of actually the coronation service when they're inside. Because when we're watching, we're going to kind of want to know, okay, what is that, right? So this is what the website says just about that day. First off, it's going to be from May 6th to the 8th. So I hope you guys know that. Okay, so it says the coronation is going to take place on May 6th at Westminster Abbey. Their Majesties, the King and Queen consort, will arrive at Westminster Abbey in procession from Buckingham Palace, known as the King's Procession. After the service, their Majesties will return to Buckingham Palace in a larger ceremonial procession known as the Coronation Procession. Their Majesties will be joined in the procession by other members of the royal family. Many people say that that's just the senior royals, but we do know that the Waleses and their children will be in a coach behind, I guess, the golden coach of the King and Queen. At Buckingham Palace, the King and Queen consort, accompanied by members of the royal family, will appear on the balcony to conclude the day's ceremonial events. And then, of course, there'll be like concerts and all kinds of things. Well, it's not really one person's event. That is true. She makes a good point. Baubles. She makes a good point. It is a historical event, so that it kind of can make sense that the public would be paying for it, especially since it hasn't happened since 1953, guys. But it is, yeah, at the expense of mentality over 50 years plus in between. At Harry, let me just see what we're saying about Harry and Meghan turned away from being royalty. They have lost their standing to be included. That is true. Except the one thing that I think, Nola, is that, let's say Camilla's family is up there too. If it becomes a family event, on the balcony rather than just, let's show all the seniors, then that's a whole other thing. This is a graphic that I'm going to kind of break down because I know you guys can't really see it all because I have to look at the other page myself. But it's a nice little graphic. Maybe I'll put it on the community tab that I have on YouTube and you guys can grab it. But this was in the Daily Mirror. So this is the schedule of the day. All right. Just the schedule. It's starting at 9 a.m. It's a little blurry up here with this expanded graphic. Breakfast at 9 a.m. served in Buckingham Palace at around 9 with the king, queen, members of the royal family, and other members that will be in the king's procession. So that's at 9 a.m. at the palace. Then at 10:30, they leave for Buckingham Palace to the Abbey in the coach. So there's going to be this golden coach, and then the king and queen are driven to Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey. After the service, they will then return to the palace in the gold coach. At that point, by the way, they'll be with the Wales family, and they will be going on like a tour. It's like a 5-mile tour with the coach. Okay, and then this is what we're going to talk about in just a millisecond. It's going to take me a little longer to go through this, but this is the service. The service has 6 points. I'm calling it 7 because there's a procession. The recognition and oath, the anointing, investing, investiture, crowning, enthronement and homage, and then the closing procession. And then this is just a example of like what he's wearing. And then of course, when the king has his procession out, I believe he's going to be driving like I said, a 5-mile recessional. So let's get into this ceremony. Let me look at some questions first and we'll talk about the ceremony. My mom turned 1 the day that Queen Elizabeth coronation happened. That's amazing. Well, people will remember this. And I like what Baubles said when she was talking about it being a historic event. This is something that people will remember. So the king arrives in here, and one of the first steps to this whole ceremony, this whole service, is this recognition piece. The recognition is that they present the king to those on the east, south, west, and north sides of the theater. People signified with recognition and joy, so they start to sing, and like it's a whole joyous thing, which means there's some music. I believe it's traditional for them to use some of Handel's music, which, by the way, he's buried in Westminster Abbey. There's all kinds of people buried there as well. And then they all shout out, "God save King Charles." There's trumpets and all over the place. And then the king then returns to his chair and the archbishop to the altar. So that's step 1. Now, the queen's service was 3 hours long, and she had 10,000 people in there. It is said that King Charles was like, oh no, not 3 hours. That's too long. And he's having 2,000 people in there. But apparently 10,000 people in there with the queen meant that people were like sneaking over the balconies, trying to peek, like all kinds of things. So it's going to be like a fifth of what she had as far as how many people. The government doesn't want a plain coronation. Yeah, I think this is a good point. It's like he's sort of a minimalist, or he likes to say he's a minimalist, but $100 million is not a minimalist. But I like to know how strong the public's back for Charles and Camilla. Oh, you thought he would end up abdicating? I don't know. I think they're kind of on board. I think they worked the press really well, in a sense, to kind of get them on board for Charles and Camilla. And I don't know because I don't live there, but I think that's the case. I wonder how much the public backs. Okay, I'm reading that one as we speak. Okay, so let's look after the recognition. Let's break this down a little bit. The coronation oath. I solemnly promise and swear to govern the people of the United Kingdom and of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. There you go. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the Union of South Africa, Pakistan, and Ceylon. Okay, guys, I copied this from Queen Elizabeth, so it might be slightly different, and of possessions and the other territories to any of them belonging or pertaining according to their respective laws and customs. I will, to my power, cause law and justice and mercy to be executed in all my judgments. I will, to the utmost of my power, maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel. I will, to the utmost of my power, maintain the United Kingdom, the Protestant Reformed religion established by law. I always thought, I know that they've battled for that for many, many years, but it was a bloody war. Like my relatives way back, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, whatever, were part of that whole like Catholic, like let's say they had a huge temple, like, out in Lewis, and it was annihilated because I think it was it was Henry VIII just wanted them all destroyed because he wanted to get a divorce. And that was why they became Protestant, because he wanted his divorce and he wanted to become king, and be in charge of the church. That is just the truth. So, and anyhow, it says, I will maintain and preserve inviolably the settlement of the Church of England and the doctrine, worship, discipline, and government thereof, as by law established in England. And I will preserve unto the bishops of clergy of England and to the churches there committed to their charge all such rights and privileges as by law do and shall appertain to them, any of them. These things I have here before promised, I will perform and keep, so help me God. Let's talk about that a little bit. I'm curious as to your thoughts, guys, regarding these, this oath and the aspect of him being the head of the church. For me, I find it a little interesting. One point that I don't know if you guys know is that King Charles is also a member of this magic circle group, this magicians group. And like, if you're becoming the head of the church, like, do you have to have any kind of do you have to be a theologian at all? Like, do you have to study that? Are there tests? Like, does he know the scriptures? I mean, I'm just curious. I sincerely thought years ago that he'd abdicate. Genuinely think it's great. Many do not believe he is the best embodiment of the crown's proper image. That is open. That is interesting. Yeah. So I think maybe the purists are like, hey, you had the affair, you had this, and now we're having to sit here with this, Okay, the anointing. There is an anointing with this anointing oil. By the way, they had to get new oil because the oil was destroyed in 1941, I think, during the war. So they had to have new anointing oil. And I think he's anointed a couple of times. But following coronation traditions, King Charles will be anointed by the Archbishop of Canterbury. This is thought to be the most sacred part of any coronation and takes place before the investiture and crowning. The Archbishop will pour holy oil from the ampulla or vessel into the spoon and will anoint the king's hands, head, and breast. According to the Royal UK, whatever, the sovereign will be anointed, blessed, and appointed by and consecrated by the Archbishop while seated in King Edward's chair, made in 1300 and used by every sovereign since 1626. After receiving the orb and scepters, the Archbishop will place the St. Edward's crown on the king's head. So we've had the recognition, we have the oath, we have the anointing, and let's see what's next. I believe so that happens, and then I think they put the crown on him. The investiture, the gift of the crown marks the formal investiture of a monarch. The first time a king or queen is dressed in their regalia. This part of the coronation will see King Charles sitting on King Edward's chair. He will be crowned by Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the congregation will shout, "God save the king." During the investiture, the new king will put on the royal robe of gold cloth and will be presented with the orb coronation ring, guys, which will be placed on the fourth finger of right hand, the scepter of the rod. Those of you who have been having conversations with me, I've got a problem with that ring on his finger because his fingers really swell up. And the history of these rings is that basically there's one from 1831 that was William IV's. I don't think he was such a big guy. And I'm like, ooh, Queen Victoria had the ring stuck on her finger and she was only 19. That was a different ring. Elizabeth I almost died from that ring. So I'm just saying, okay, should be on the Pope, on the paper roadmap. Okay. All right. So after this, is the enthroning. The part of the coronation we will see King Charles rise from the coronation chair and ascend the steps of the throne. He will be holding the sword of the state. When Queen Elizabeth was crowned, a statement was declared. It read, "The Queen, having come to her throne, was then lifted up into it by the archbishops, the bishops, and the other peers, who thereafter stood round about the steps of the throne, and the archbishop, standing before the Queen, pronounced the exhortation, beginning with the words, 'Stand firm and hold fast.'" So we've gotten to number 5. I really want to talk about number 6. Okay, let's see what Christine has to say. This will be very interesting to watch. I know, being Canadian, this will be all over the TVs. I know that my grandparents will find the extremely exciting part of For a Lifetime, and I do too. Yeah, I think it's going to be really fascinating, really interesting. I think England will be kind of elated to have this. I do think it's shrouded in a lot of drama right now. And this is part of the reason. This kind of leads into this. The last part before they have their processional out, actually, there's a few other things after this, but this is the final part for his coronation before the Queen gets her whole thing done. So this part of the coronation, it will be the Archbishop of Canterbury along with royal blood princes. Okay, likely to include Prince William, the Prince of Wales. Normally, it would have Prince Harry. Normally, it would have Prince Andrew. Normally, it would have that, but they made a change, I guess, because of Prince Andrew and maybe whatever. But they will be the only ones, and it's kind of sad to me because this is about paying homage. Let me read it, and then we'll talk about that. Their hands will be between the king's knees, swear all allegiance, touch the crown, and kiss the king's right hand. At the coronation of King George V in 1911, the Prince of Wales, the future king, Edward VIII, knelt before his father and recited the words, "I, Edward, Prince of Wales, do become your liege, man of life and limb and of earthly worship, and faith and truth I will bear unto you, and live and die against all manner of folks. So help me God." Guys, he said that, and then he ended up, hooking up with his wife, and then Wallace Simpson, and then put the throne behind him. In 1953, the most senior peer present was the Duke of Edinburgh. He took off his coronet, ascended the steps of the throne, knelt before the Queen, placed his hands between hers, and pronounced his words of homage. He was followed by the Dukes of Gloucester and Kent, both cousins of the Queen. So I wanted to talk about this specifically because normally they're paying homage. So okay, we're talking about Harry right now. This is what I'm bringing up. And Edward VIII, right? Edward VIII stands before his dad, and he's like, "I dedicate my life to you, to this throne, whatever." He's about to become king, in a handful of years. Harry had this opportunity before they changed the rules to literally pay respects to his dad. And granted, Harry's not going to be the king, but when you are in that position, wouldn't it have been respectful and nice to have been able to be in a position and say, "I honor my father"? His story is such a prodigal kind of a thing. So I want to know how you guys feel. Should this have been, for all of the sons, or I wonder if they made the changes recently. I wonder if the changes were just happened, and it was supposed to be Harry and Will, and I don't know if he would still have Andrew, but paying homage and making this vow. What do you guys think about that? So I'm just curious. I think it's very interesting. Now, after that, yeah, it's sad. I wonder if Harry has any regrets. I'm not sure. We don't know. We'll see if to get a little personal, and you guys can explore what you've experienced too. I remember when I was back in his day, a little bit younger, about his age, I think I was a really good daughter. I was really great to my parents, but I was definitely not as respectful as I should have been. And now as I get older, I'm like, wow, I should have shown them more respect. I wonder if he's going to have any great regrets, as you ask. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to have any regrets, but it's very interesting because it's a short opportunity. It's just such a short little window of time. And so much of it he's already sort of blown. In other words, he could have spent this time supporting his dad, talking to his dad, having those moments, right? But, he hasn't. So I don't know. After this, by the way, after the king is crowned, then that's when Queen Camilla, and again, for those of you who refuse to say that she's just the queen and is queen consort, we went over this the other night. She is a type of queen. She doesn't have the powers that Queen Elizabeth had, but she still would just be called queen. Just like we don't say king regnant, we just call him the king. So we would still call her just Queen Camilla. And so that is what she's going to be crowned as well. So I believe for the historical sake, okay, now I got to put my glasses on again. Emotions aside, all the monarch's children should do the ritual, even if just I feel that way too. I feel like, I don't know, what an honor to be able to stand in front of your father and go, you know what, you've worked really hard. I see what you've done. Yeah. But we also don't know what's been going on behind the scenes. So who are we to say? There's also a secret ceremony. Let me see if I can find it in my notes. That guys, by the way, there's a book that they use called the Liber Regalis, or the Royal Book, that dates back to 1382 and was translated out of Latin in 1603, and they use that. The coronation has been home to Westminster Abbey has been home to coronations for over 1,000 years. The people who are buried there are there's too many to mention, but Handel from, Geoffrey Handel, who George Handel, who did, Handel's Messiah, Geoffrey Chaucer, Stephen Hawking, Elizabeth I, Edward Confessor, Henry III, Sir Lawrence Olivier was there. So, and the monarch will be wearing multiple crowns. Like I said, I'm not going to get into the regalia so much because I will discussing that later. But there still is the big question. I will just talk about this of, hey, why? Okay, Queen Camilla is using Queen Mary's crown. She took out the Kohinoor not to offend anybody, but they didn't send the Kohinoor back. They're using the Cullinan diamonds, which are from from South Africa. So that's interesting that hasn't been returned back. So it's fascinating that there's all kinds of things, that are kind of controversial in my opinion. So there's a secret sacred ceremony after this that will not be televised. We don't get to see it. They believe that the British monarch is a monarch by divine right, and the Archbishop of Canterbury pours holy oil. So this happens again from the ampulla vessel in the shape of an eagle to anoint each new monarch, infusing him or her with God's spirit and rendering them unassailable. It's like a baptism with oil, diamonds or whatever, and all of a sudden he's king. So that won't be televised, but that is something that happens then. So let me see what we're saying here. I think we need to do a road and air trip. That would be fun. A bunch of Americans. Yeah, I like to do that. That is ironic. The Cullinan diamonds were gifted. It's still a question though. So Edward VII was given these diamonds that came from this mine, but the Africans that were there in that mine still think that the diamonds need to be back there. It's up for debate, obviously, for the great star of Africa. So some people don't believe that. Some people believe it's still controversial. The Kohinoor apparently was manipulated. This is the story, I'm just saying, allegedly, out of the hands of a young Maharaja who did not have his father. His mom was around, but he was pretty much orphaned, and it felt very threatening. And so he just signed over the diamond. The diamond was never returned, and it was used in the royal regalia and the crowns for years, even as recent as the Queen Mother, who had it in the Queen Mary crown during the time that she had her coronation. So just to say, there are those controversies, and there will be people that will be piping their heads up and going, The Kohinoor was taken. So, I mean, we will, who knows, Judith, like the Cullinan, I think we need to dive a little bit deeper into that. One thing I found funny or interesting was that I think Edward the Seventh just had the thing mailed to him. I'm surprised it didn't get lost. You're a great addition to the chat since you are from the UK. Yes. Thank you, Judith. Okay, so then what happens after that? They have an official processional. In my mind, they keep saying processional, but I'm thinking it's a recessional because they leave. Now with this, the Wales children will also be behind the king and queen, as will Prince William and senior members. They will be leaving with them. They'll be getting into this golden carriage, and then there's another carriage, and then there will be a 5-mile processional back to Buckingham Palace, where there will be millions and millions and millions of people on the route. Then they head back to Buckingham Palace. They get on the balcony, have a lunch. That's it for the day. All of this, I think, is done, I don't know, by 2 or 3 o'clock. Maybe it's 4. So that's how the day will go. And then, but the question is, who will be on that balcony? The question is, who's going to be performing? Because people are like, who's going to, volunteer to perform now because nobody is saying they will. I don't know if there's as much drama about the fact that Elton John and Adele say they won't be performing and the Spice Girls are like, sorry, or if it's just, I don't know. It's just the way it is, right? So let me grab a few more questions and then we'll call it a day. I am steadfast. The diamonds are, okay. Let me get your side on this. I am steadfast. The diamonds are for the monarchy proper. No debate. Amazing. There was no colonies giving lip about the gifts until the ridiculous modern age. Done. Zip. Let things be. Yeah, it's amazing. Things do kind of turn around and have different stories and different narratives as years go by and as the offense gets a little bit more intense. So that's possible. However, it is disputed which country now has the claim to the Kohinoor. Yeah, because I think what happened was, if I remember correctly, Judith, and you can help me if I'm wrong, it had been around since like, I don't know, way before. I mean, maybe 1200. I'm just throwing that out there. But it had traveled all around, right? And it had finally made its way to India, but I think it was in some Asian, I think it was in a dynasty. I don't know, some Chinese dynasty or something back in the day. So I think you're right that maybe we don't know. They were given as a gift as far as the Cullinan. So, I think everybody can debate whatever. I don't really know. I'm like kind of in the middle on this. I'm just saying that there is controversy. So, all right, guys, any more questions regarding this? I just wanted this out there so that people knew that there's the 6 steps of the actual ceremony. There's a lot of symbolism. I'm very kind of torn on like, okay, how deep this is with his spiritual authority that they give the king. I don't know. Okay, there's some new comments. South Africa, they were given as a gift. Yeah, from South Africa as far as the Cullinan diamonds are. Okay, guys, I am Deanna from Hot for History. And as usual, it's a pleasure to be here. How long ago was the diamond gifted to them? Okay, so Edward, sorry, this happens every time I'm about to sign off. Edward the Seventh got it. So that would be what? That predates George the Fifth. So late 1800s, mid to late 1800s. Am I incorrect? Yeah, because no, mid, like maybe 1910, 11. So something like that. Okay, Nola, thank you. I was thinking of predating Queen Victoria, so I was wrong with that. As far as the Kohinoor diamond, it's way back. As far as when the English got it, I don't know. I think it was hundreds of years ago, but maybe you guys can help me with the Kohinoor when that came over, because I don't have my little bag of tricks here with all of my notes. Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, and Iran have all laid claim to the Kohinoor. Judith, if you have a date with the Kohinoor when it became part of the royal trust or the crown jewels, I would love to see it. It was gifted so long ago. Are they making? Jillian, I think some people are making a big deal out of it. That's why we're bringing it up. I don't think in general, but I think what happens when the monarchy changes is that it's such a sensitive time that all of the stuff gets stirred up. You know, whether it's Harry, whether it's people saying, not my king, I don't want a monarchy anymore, whether it's the diamonds, whether it's, you know, whatever, how they got their rubies, you know, whether or not they are indeed legitimately the royal line. There's all kinds of things. Should they be spending 100 million? He's using plant-based oil, by the way. He wanted plant-based anointing oil. So I'm not really sure. I do want to get that date for the Kohinoor. I think it was really long ago. Thank you so much. This is fun. I am just trying to learn alongside with you. And I really appreciate you guys as well. Thank you for the thanks. And I think I'm going to call it a day. I will be coming back because I want to dive into the royal regalia. I'm doing all of this now before the coronation so that we can just have it out there to go back to. And then we can be in real time during the coronation rather than having to revisit some of this stuff, and we can be a little bit more educated. All right, so we will go ahead and we will talk about, I guess, the dates of the Kohinoor at some other point. I had it. I think it's way back then. But I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for all of your support. Have a great, great day. Don't forget to subscribe.